Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. It is promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are going to be spending the next 20 minutes together here talking about our using the chart of accounts wizard to enter the chart of accounts in Church Windows Accounting. Before we get started on that, just a couple things. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of your webinar control panel there, control pane. I will do my best to keep an eye on those questions. If I don't get to them during the webinar event, I will definitely get to them at the conclusion of my topic here today, or our topic. I will do my best to repeat those for everyone's benefit, and we'll see what we can do to answer those. Again, we do ask simply that you keep the questions topical, meaning about our chart of accounts wizard here. We may have another webinar event that covers the topic that has that is better suited to your question, or depending on if it's a data specific question, I may actually put it off or ask you to call me on a support call, as there may be other questions that we need to have answered. Before we jump into this, I want to show out a couple things here, since we are talking about using the chart of accounts wizard to enter our chart of accounts. I want to point out on the Church Windows support blog right here under support blog, down under support, if I do sample as my keyword in the search, we do have an option here called accounting sample chart of accounts. So if you are just entering your chart of accounts in Church Windows and need some help with that, this is an example PDF file that you can print or view that just shows an example of a chart of accounts in Church Windows. Great to use as a guide. So as you're constructing that, if you're struggling with that sample chart of accounts may offer some insight on that for you. Please use that. It's there 24/7. Okay. Also, a recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel before the end of the week this week. So you can go back and revisit this at some point. This is also one of the new webinar events that we're setting up, which is part of a series called How Do I Start? So if you're interested in kind of basic Church Windows topics, this is going to fall nicely into that category. All right, so let's dive into Church Windows. Now, we're generating our chart of accounts wizard in a way, there's one of two ways that can occur. Either when you're installing Church Windows for the very first time, it would open our chart of accounts wizard, but we don't have that situation. We've got a situation where we're going to go to manage years, set up new accounting year, and we're going to choose the option here in our menu called create empty chart of accounts. So if your church has been using Church Windows and you really feel like things are kind of dire and you want to start over, you can use this create empty chart of accounts. And notice here with this option, it does give me the capability to choose to use account numbers or not. And if we're going to definitely use them. It also then allows me to edit my account structure. So if I now click in here and I go, okay, I want to have this be, 3 options in here, notice that my sample or example below that does change. So use the example as a means to identify your account numbers, or how many digits and separators you want in your account numbers. One of the important things to know about Church Windows is every account number will have the exact same number of digits. So I can have some accounts with 6 digits and then another group of accounts with 7, another group with 8 or 5 or 4 or what have you. Once I set the account number structure here, every account number in the database will have, in the chart of accounts, will have the same number of digits. There's no deviation from that, okay? If you decide you don't want to use account numbers, you would simply uncheck the use account numbers, or if you're entering Church Windows for the first time, there's an option that pops up during the chart of accounts wizard that says, will you be using account numbers? And you can say no to that. But in this case, we're going to check the use account numbers. Personally, if you're asking my opinion as a support technician and a trainer for Church Windows, I wouldn't enter a chart of accounts without using account numbers. The account numbers help us identify more clearly what type of an account we're working with. Okay, and so using the account numbers just offers a completely different and additional greater level of flexibility in terms of using not only the software but our reports as well. So I clicked OK after setting up a new chart of accounts, and here it's opening up the same window that we would see as if we were setting up the chart of accounts for the very first time. The only difference is it's not giving us the option to set up our accounting year or to identify our accounts, because the system now knows what that is. So we notice here in the background it says January through December 2017. So here I am halfway through the year. I'm basically getting ready for my 2017 accounting year by setting this up the way, by setting it up now. So I'm giving myself 6 months to get my new chart of accounts entered and set up. Okay. Once we've gone through our, oh, yep, sorry, folks. So by the way, this is all part of our accounting A101 accounting training workbook. So basically, using the wizard to enter the chart of accounts starts on page 4 of that workbook. Now, again, I'm kind of doing an abbreviated version of this because there's not enough time in 20 minutes to cover the entire book. But basically, if you're interested in the workbooks or using them, and A101 is the book you'll need to look at or to review for the chart of accounts wizard. So the first thing that it asks us after we've set up our accounting year and are we using account numbers is it opens up the setup chart of accounts wizard with setting up main funds. So one of the things that we've got to always keep in mind here is Church Windows Accounting is a fund accounting system. So the very first thing it says is setting up main funds. So it first asks us for the fund name, then the fund balance account name, and the account number. And we're going to go ahead and key in a general fund. Virtually every church has a general operating fund, so we're going to call this general fund. And notice when we tab down, it just adds the word balance to it. There are multiple components to a fund. In this case, we've got the fund, and then we've got the fund balance account, the actual account itself, which will appear on reports. Then when I tab down to my account number, notice it automatically populates with a leading digit of 3. So funds in Church Windows automatically start with the number 3 if you're using account numbers. So this, again, as a technician, this is one of the reasons why I recommend using account numbers, is because I'll ask you on a support call, what's the first digit on the account number that you're discussing? If you're kind of using mixed terminology with me, I may ask you for that, because that number tells me exactly what type of an account I'm working with. So if you tell me the starting digit is a 3, I know you're talking about the fund. If you tell me 4 or 5, then those are income or expenses. Okay? So account numbers not only tell us what accounts they are, what type of an account we're dealing with, but it also helps us organize our reports better. And again, offers greater flexibility. So from here, everything after that leading digit now, it's up to me to enter. So I can go say 100,000. Okay? It's also now asking us, is this fund going to have sub-funds right here? Will this fund have sub-funds? We're not going to have sub-funds for our general fund. Okay, so we're just going to leave that unchecked, and then we're simply going to go down to the bottom here and click the button called Add This Fund. So then it pops up and says, will there be income accounts for general fund? And oh boy, there sure will be. So we're going to enter just a couple here. So notice at the very top, it grays out our fund, leaving general fund, and then it's asking us to enter our first income account for that. So here we're going to type in, say, general tithes and offerings. And again, when I tab down, it asks me to enter the account number, leading digit of 4. I'll type in 100,000, add account, and the process will allow me to continue to add other income accounts to the general fund in exactly the same manner. So we'll call this, rental income. He said, rental income for 100,005, add account. And notice that our list of existing income accounts for general fund at the bottom continues to grow. Okay? If I make a mistake, I can Also, check this box, these delete boxes on the left, and notice my delete selected accounts button becomes available. So if I make a mistake in here, I can just delete it and re-add the account. Also, my tree view on the right side continues to grow over here. So I could continue. Again, now I'm not limiting myself to adding. These are not the only accounts that I'm going to add to the general fund. I'm just using the wizard as a means to set up a chart of accounts that maybe I have down on paper or in a spreadsheet or something. Okay. So we're gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna click finish with adding income accounts. It pops up and says, will there be expenses for the general fund? So, oh yeah, absolutely there will be. So we're gonna call this, we're gonna do gas expense. Again, tabbing down 500, 100. So we're gonna put our utilities together here. Add account, electric expense, 100, 105, add account, water expense. So again, you get the general idea. There's nothing really terribly challenging about this, but we're just going down the list, again, perhaps from a spreadsheet or from a written out chart of accounts or something that we have somewhere else. Again, I can always add additional accounts to the chart of accounts at any time when I'm done. Same thing, if I need to delete one and start over, I can just simply click the delete box and click the delete selected accounts, and again, the tree view continues to grow. Okay, so we're going to leave that at that. Click finish with adding expense accounts for general fund, and then the process starts over. So if I want to add another fund, like my building fund or memorials or missions or something like that, I would simply say yes to this. It would then say, would you like to add income and expense accounts to that fund? So again, I can continue adding funds with income and expenses at will until I'm done. Okay. Okay, so I'm being asked, are these the same as giving account numbers? That's a great question, Sherilyn. No, these are giving accounts. These are accounts in our chart of accounts in accounting. These can link over to your giving accounts in donations, but these are not giving accounts. These are chart of accounts. If already using church windows, can you set up a new chart of accounts and accounts starting it in the middle of an accounting year, say July 1st, or you'd have to wait until, yeah, Heather, that would be something you'd have to wait till the change of year, or unless you were going to be changing your chart of accounts to changing from a calendar to a fiscal year. So yeah, in this case, it would have to wait until you were ready to open the next accounting year. Great questions. All right, so we're going to say no to the setting up of another fund, again, because the process, it's again, follow the bouncing ball here, folks. It's literally say yes, add in, once you've entered the new fund, it would add income, add expense accounts, and the process continues ad nauseum until you say no to this prompt, okay? So we're going to say no. So then, again, just by way of an example, if you don't own the accounts receivable add-on, you don't have to worry about this. But if you do own accounts receivable, again, I can set up an asset account here, and we'll call this one, we'll start this one, say 900 000. So we're going to put this at the end of our asset accounts. And so it says set account number. So we're setting up an asset receivable, essentially, a subledger that has a ledger with subaccounts where all of our receivable clients are going to be listed. And I can go ahead and add receivable clients if I wish. But I also can go right down here to the very bottom, notice, and right here where it says continue without adding accounts receivable client accounts. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and add one here just to show you. And so we're going to add just one name here, and we click add accounts. And the only difference between receivable clients and other accounts, just like accounts payable clients, is these are accounts, they just don't have account numbers. Okay? So notice it shows a minus sign next to my accounts receivable client, and then indented below that. And we would continue to add accounts receivable clients the exact same way. When I'm done, I simply again would click finish with adding with accounts receivable clients. It then opens up and asks me to add assets. So we're going to call this one Huntington Bank Checking. Again, assets represent accounts we physically own. Checking, savings, investments, anything that we own at the financial institutions. Again, this is going to be the account that holds the money in our general funds, so we're going to make a sort of a parallel between that through our account numbers. And again, add accounts, add account. So we'll call this one Fifth Third Savings. If I could type today. Tab down again, 200,000, add accounts. So the assets continue to be added in the exact same manner. Finally, then we click Finish with adding asset accounts. Now it asks us to set up a accounts payable ledger account. So again, we're going to put this at the back end of our liability accounts and set account number. And again, sets the ledger liability, allowing us to enter subledger vendor accounts. So we'll call this one AEP for our electric company. We'll call this one Columbia Gas. Add account. And again, other vendors would be set up and added to the chart of account to this ledger in exactly the same manner until I'm finished with my accounts payable vendors. And finally, it asks me, do I want to set up other liability accounts? So we're going to say yes to that. So here in this case, if you own Church Windows Payroll, maybe you'll want to add one called 941 Taxes, Tax Payable. Again, entering a 200 series number, adding the account. Again, we're just continuing to add these accounts. These are all separate liabilities that have a separate to number. And again, maybe I've even got one for mortgage. And again, I would maybe make that in a different series, adding my accounts the exact same way. Okay, so once I'm done with my finished liability accounts, it then pops up with my final prompt here that says you may now enter accounts at will or go to set beginning balances. Please use the button across the top of the screen to navigate. Okay, so now what that means is, notice now my opening screen changes, shows my new accounting year, and now I can go here up to, I can go up to manage accounts, accounts plus minus, and continue to add counts at will anytime I wish. Or I can go to my manage accounts to actually view my chart of accounts that I've set up here and entered. And one of the things here with just a couple minutes left, folks, that it talks about is, the final prompt here is we've got to get our beginning balances entered for these accounts. So anytime I open accounting, it's going to open to this setup chart of accounts screen, prompting me to enter and set my beginning balances for these accounts, my balance sheet accounts in essence. Okay? Which again, just by way of example, if I close out of here and I relaunch accounting again, it's going to open up that setup chart of accounts screen for me automatically, because it's basically just doing, hey, here's a friendly reminder that you've got to not only enter these balances, but then at some point you're going to have to finalize them. And right here, what I mean down here is finalize beginning balances. So right here are debit and credit totals right here. Those are our balance sheet totals. So those have to be in balance. So I would have to get my total debits and total credits in balance before the system will allow me to finalize those. This accounting system won't permit us to have or set up or have an unbalanced balance sheet. So total debits do have to equal total credits, and the system will require that and force that to happen. So, as I like to tell folks here, since your assets represent your actual cash accounts, generally those are the best place to start, because once we enter our reconciled or register balances in those accounts, we would naturally then have our funds and our liabilities balance or match with those accounts. So, a good place to start is with our cash accounts or our asset accounts, since they represent the reality. All right, folks, so that's 20 minutes. I'm done with what I'm talking about here. So if you do have questions for me, please, shoot those off to me or into the questions here. And I'll see what I can't do to try to get those answered. It looks like we got folks kind of diving out pretty quickly. Again, don't forget you've got the A101 workbook if you have that, that details in much greater detail than I covered here, available for you. If you're unfamiliar with those, there are training workbooks that you can find or purchase from our Church Windows website. Please call us if you have questions about it. So I'm just going to kind of sit here and see if folks are maybe typing in some questions to me. I don't see anything coming in right now. All right, thank you all so much. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.